Welcome to the Padres Postgame Show on the Padres Radio Network. Coming up, we'll deliver a full recap of today's game, including highlights from the biggest moments. We'll take a trip down to the manager's office to hear from Mike Shildt. Plus, we'll bring you scores from around Major League Baseball. The Padres Postgame Show starts now on the Padres Radio Network.
Welcome into our post-game show here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Rockies 10 and the Padres 9. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up on what was a tough loss for the Padres in Colorado this afternoon. Padres look to be well on their way to a series win, to taking 3 out of 4 against the Rockies before it all came crashing down in the bottom half of the 8th inning. We'll dive into what happened in that 8th inning as the Rockies scored 6 runs on a grand total of 5 hits. There were wild pitches. There was a passed ball, and the Rockies ultimately took a 10-9 lead, go on to win this game. And the Rockies, who came into this series with 4 wins this season, they come away with 2 more against the Padres here today, as the Padres in a series you felt like they really should at the very least take 3 out of 4. Now end up splitting the 4-game series in Colorado. Now the schedule gets hard again for the Padres. They'll welcome in the Phillies tomorrow. We'll have much more on all that coming up. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. We'll have all the radio highlights for you. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt and much more to come. And I feel like as of late, when we've talked about Padres losses, you could point to a few different things, right? Some nights you could point to starting pitching. Certainly a lot of nights I've talked about the offense not adding on or going quiet in the middle or late innings. But this is one of these cases here today where it just totally unraveled in the 8th inning. And this is a word that I don't use often unless I feel like I really got to use it, and it sort of describes what happened. It was just sort of a meltdown in that 8th inning with the Rockies scoring 6 runs. Not only were there 6 runs on 5 hits and 1 big home run by Hunter Goodman to make it a 2-run game, but still at the time a 2-run game. Padres still in front 9-7, but there were 3 walks, there were 2 wild pitches, and 1 really critical pass ball as well. And it just totally unraveled. I don't know what else there is to say, what else there is to describe from this game. Sure, could the Padres have scored a little bit more? Yeah, they were 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position. But even after they had a 4-1 lead in this game, Rockies ended up tying it at 4. To the Padres' credit, they went on another run. They ended up scoring 5 more runs, 2 in the 4th inning, 2 in the 7th inning, 1 in the 8th inning, to make it a 9-4 game. And look, Coors Field or not, when you have a 5-run lead, even at Coors Field with 6 outs to get, that's a game you got to win. And number 2, here was the really surprising part of this whole thing today, was the fact that the bullpen, which we've talked about so often as of late, it has been so good, and guys like Wandy Peralta have been really good as of late. It just didn't go anywhere close to good in that 8th inning. Again, walks, wild pitches, a passed ball, a big home run, 5 hits total. Rockies sent 11 batters to the plate, and this is a Rockies team that's not scoring a lot at all. This is not a good Rockies lineup, and quite frankly, this isn't a good Rockies team. They come in sitting at 6-19. They pick up their 7th win of the season here today. So just a nightmarish 8th inning. I don't know what else you point at in this game. The Padres offense, to me, did what they should have done in this game. 9 runs at Coors Field. Early on, it was kind of Coors Fieldy with the 4-1 lead, and the Rockies get it back to 4-4. This was kind of your classic Coors Field game, but not in the way you wanted if you're a Padres fan, and just things totally unraveled. Obviously, Peralta didn't have it in the 8th inning. Yuki Matsui, did a good job completing the 7th inning, gives up a double, a walk. Stephen Kolek comes in, a wild pitch that ends up being costly, gives up the double to Diaz, and it just totally unraveled on the Padres bullpen in that 8th inning. So while I would love to sit here and point to a bunch of different things and tell you that I have some grand observation or conclusion on what happened here today. I mean, just that eighth inning, it was a nightmare. A nightmarish eighth inning, and the Rockies end up scoring 6 runs to go on to win it 10-9, just like that. So, man, super frustrating. And when you want to zoom out on the series as a whole, just the series, if you're a Padres team and you have postseason aspirations, and albeit it is April 25th, I understand that, but you have got to take care of business against a team like the Rockies, not just in this series, but when you have an opportunity to go win the series in the final game of it here today, and you have a 9-4 lead heading into the eighth inning. So, boy, nightmarish eighth inning, and just all came crashing down at what was otherwise, before the eighth inning, really a fine game for the Padres. Offense, for the most part, did its job. Randy Vasquez struggled in his start, but the early part of the bullpen, Brito de los Santos did a great job in this game. And then after really Matsui came out, once Wandy Peralta came in, the home run, a single, a walk, a passed ball, a single, a wild pitch, it just did not go well whatsoever for Peralta, somebody who's been really good as of late. So we'll continue to break it down. When we come back, we'll have all the radio highlights for you. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Interested to hear what Mike Shildt has to say today after what was, I think to this point, no doubt about it, the toughest loss of the year for the Padres. Certainly just the most stunning loss of the year for the Padres. And again, I like to come on here and kind of break it down, look at different things. I don't know what else you look at in this game other than to say the eighth inning just totally unraveled. That's what happened. The eighth inning totally unraveled, and it was a mix of everything. A home run to make it a 2-run game, 5 hits total, 2 wild pitches, a passed ball. Just a nightmarish eighth inning, and the Padres could not recover. They go down 1-2-3 in the ninth inning, and the Padres somehow lose this game 10-9. And again, in a series you really felt like they should win, especially with the way things stood today heading into that bottom of the eighth. Now they just split the 4-game series against the Rockies. So we'll continue to break it all down. Again, we are live on YouTube for the first time ever on our post-game show here. So thank you to everybody tuning in on YouTube. Of course, if you're listening on 97.3 The Fan or the Odyssey app, we appreciate it as always. We'll get to your tweets, your Instagram DMs, your YouTube comments, may squeeze in some phone calls as well. Again, the final score, final game of this 4-game series in Colorado, Rockies 10, Padres 9. More after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, Rockies 10 and the Padres 9, as the Padres had a 9-4 lead heading into the bottom half of the eighth inning. The Rockies end up scoring 6 runs against the mix of Yuki Matsui, Wandy Peralta, and Steven Kolek to go on and win this game 10-9. Padres and Rockies split this 4-game series. But my goodness, it felt like the Padres should have very easily taken 3 out of 4, maybe even swept this series, if we're being honest, if we're going back and looking at the game on Tuesday night, which felt like a winnable game. But against the Rockies team that, again, came into this series with a record of 5-17, Padres and Rockies split this series. Padres now 14-14. Rockies improved with the win here today to 7-19 on the year. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Before we get to that, let's break down how this one went in the Rockies.
What moments had the biggest impact on today's game? We'll paint you a picture with our game recap on the Padres Radio Network.
Early on, the Padres and the Rockies traded runs. Rockies took a 1-0 lead on a sac fly against Randy Vasquez in the bottom of the first inning. Padres then tied it with a run on an RBI ground out from Jose Azocar in the top of the second. Fast forward to the top of the third. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a leadoff double. He was on third base with 1 out for Jurickson Profar.
Here's the 2-1 pitch, and Profar muscles it through into center field, a base hit. Fernando will come in to score, and the Padres lead for the first time today. It's 2-1.
Ha-Sung Kim was next.
Here's the 2-0. Kim swings, hits it in the air to deep left field. Cave is going back at the wall, looking up, gonna go! For the first time this series, the Padres hit a home run. A 2-run shot for Kim here in the third, and now a 4-1 Padre lead.
But in the bottom half of the inning, the Rockies rallied against Vasquez. A single, a walk. Those 2 runners moved to second and third on a ground out. Another ground out brought a run home to make it 4-2. There was still a runner on base for Alaris Montero.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. That is launched to left field. Wade is back towards the corner. He's at the wall looking up. Gonna go. Dropped it into that tunnel over the tall wall down the left field line. A 2-run homer for Montero, his first of the year. And the Rockies have tied it up 4-4.
Randy Vasquez went just 2 2/3 innings and allowed 4 runs on 6 hits. Johnny Brito finished the bottom of the third. We were tied at 4. Padres then responded in the 4th inning. Rockies starter Dakota Hudson issued a leadoff walk and then allowed a single to put runners on first and second. Xander Bogaerts dug in.
His pitch hit hard on the ground left side. Diving attempt, Tovar ricochets off his glove, heads towards the foul line. Rosario's going to come in and score. Bogaerts hustles into second base, an RBI double, and the Padres back in front 5-4.
Hudson exited the game after 3 innings and a third. Jake Cronenworth made it 6-4 when he drove Bogaerts in with a sac fly. It stayed 6-4 for a while thanks to Johnny Brito. He pitched the scoreless 4th and 5th inning, but then Brito got in trouble in the bottom of the 6th inning. A couple of singles to put 2 on with nobody out. Enyel De Los Santos entered. He struck out 3 in a row to get out of the jam. Tremendous job in that inning from De Los Santos. That then set the stage for the top of the 7th inning. There was a runner on for Jurickson Profar.
Swings at the first pitch, hits it in the air deep down the right field line. Goodman back to watch. It's going to go. A 2-run homer for Jurickson Profar. And a big pinwheel bat flip as he heads to first base. 8-4 San Diego in the 7th.
De Los Santos and Yuki Matsui combined for a scoreless bottom of the 7th inning. In the 8th inning, the Padres got more. Tyler Wade hit a leadoff single. Wade stole second. Eggy Rosario at the plate.
Back at home tomorrow night. 2-2 lined into right center field. A base hit. Wade is on his way to third. He is being waved home. Doyle's throw will go into second base. An RBI single for Eggy Rosario. And the Padres add on. It's 9-4.
So the Padres took that 9-4 lead into the bottom of the 8th inning. And at that point, I don't blame you if you were feeling good about this one and the Padres getting out of Colorado with a series win. Matsui was back on the mound. He gave up a 1-out double and then a walk. Mike Shildt then went to Wandy Peralta to face the right-handed hitting Hunter Goodman.
2-0 hit in the air to deep left field. Wade is going back. He will watch. It's going to go. This is a 3-run home run for Hunter Goodman. His first hit of the year. And don't look now, it's now a 9-7 game.
All of a sudden, we had a 2-run game. Peralta was really struggling. Jacob Stalling singled. Ezekiel Tovar walked. There were runners on first and second base for Brenton Doyle.
Here's the pitch. And a hard hit grounder up the middle, through into center field and a base hit. Stallings lumbering around third. He'll come in to score. It is a 1-run game here in the bottom of the 8th.
And all of a sudden, the tying run was on third base. Then this happened.
0-1 pitch to McMahon, gets through. Tovar's on his way. He will score. 9-9 in the 8th. And boy, I think Campusano just missed it.
Yeah, this is a fast ball.
Yeah, it was a pass ball on Luis Campusano. We were tied at 9. The Rockies had scored 5 runs to tie it in the bottom of the 8th inning. The very next pitch from Peralta was a wild pitch to send the go-ahead run to third base. He bounced back to strike out Ryan McMahon for the second out of the inning. The Padres then went to right-hander Stephen Kolek to face Elias Diaz.
2-0, the pitch. Diaz hammers it in the air down the left field line. That's a fair ball. That'll get it done. Doyle in to score. Diaz on his way to second. An RBI double, and Colorado does lead for the first time in a long time. It's 10-9.
A long time being when it was 1-0 Rockies in the first inning. Their first lead since then, when they took a 10-9 lead in the bottom half of the 8th inning. Kolek would walk another batter. He would get out of the 8th inning, with it being still a 1-run game. But quickly, to recap that 8th inning, a nightmarish 8th inning for the San Diego Padres. 6 runs, 5 hits, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, and a pass ball. Not good. We went to the top of the 9th inning. Right-hander Justin Lawrence came on for the Rockies. Padres down by 1. Jake Cronenworth grounded out. Jerkson Profar grounded out. The game was left up to Ha-Sung Kim.
3-2 from Lawrence. Kim waits. Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss. Kim strikes out, and the ball game is over. A nightmare 8th inning for the Padres as the Rockies put up 6 to come from behind and earn a split in this 4-game series. The final score, Colorado 10 and San Diego 9.
And that was that. Tough loss for the Padres here today in Colorado as the Rockies come back to win it. A 6-run bottom half of the 8th inning. 10-9, the final score. Again, the Rockies improved to 7-19. Padres dropped to 14-14 in what was, to this point, the most frustrating, stunning, disappointing loss of the Padres season. And to be clear, it would be frustrating even if it were the Dodgers in town, right? And you had a 9-4 lead in the 8th inning. But considering you had that lead against this Rockies team, not a good one for the Padres here today. Let's go back to Coors Field in Denver. Here's some post-game reaction from Mike Shildt.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
What had been a superb day by your bullpen just sort of went up in smoke. What was happening with Peralta?
Ask me the question again.
Sorry, what was happening with Peralta? It had been a superb day by your bullpen. It looked like
Yeah, been a superb day. I mean, look, the guy proved he's human a little bit today. I don't know what you may tell you.
I know it was only 15 pitches last night. Just didn't have it today.
But yeah, Goodman put a swing on him, hit a 3-run homer, and the guy's been outstanding for us. And just Stallings took the ball the other way, and walked Tovar, and a couple walks that inning hurt us. But I don't know what you want me to really tell you. The guy's been fantastic all year. Just wasn't able to get balls at people, wasn't able to get anybody on the ground.
Is that sort of set up by how much your bullpen did have to cover it, basically, when your starter doesn't get out of the third?
Brito picked up the bulk of it. He got us to the position we'd like to get to, where we're in the 6th-ish, and we can start to use our back pieces. He was fantastic. Kept him right there, kept us the lead, able to add on, did his part. Went out in the 6th, got in a little bit of traffic. Dale was fantastic to punch out the side. Went and grabbed his guy in the 7th. Now we're set up where we want to be. And, Yuki went out and finished really quickly. I was able to go back out, got his first guy, and then put a ball down the line, probably but it probably started the inning off, and then the walk to Bouchard, and went from there.
It did seem like for as good as Wandy has been of late, he just didn't really have it from the start today. Why was he left in for 5 batters? Did you consider getting him out of there earlier?
It was obvious to you.
I said it seemed like he didn't really have it, early today.
Okay. Wandy has about a 60% ground ball rate. Okay. The second a guy gives up a home run, I can't just go take out a guy that's got a microscopic ERA and's got righties out all year. Now, it can be subjective whether he has or not. That can be your opinion. My opinion is I got a veteran guy out there that knows how to get a ball on the ground and is one pitch away from getting a ground ball. So that's what we had. It didn't work out. Things don't work out all the time. I don't know what you would tell you.
Oh, that's fair.
It's a crazy venue. Crazy things happen here. How much of it is concern versus that's just he's chalked that one up to?
I don't have any concern. I'm going to tell you what, I walked out of this ballpark. There's some agitation because we didn't win the game. But I'm going to tell you what I walk out of this ballpark with. A couple things. A bunch of gamers that showed up without one of our better players in Manning, which, rightfully so. He's having a baby. We had Jackson who, little ouchie, want to stay away from it. We had guys all over the field playing their asses off and going out and stepping up and getting after it every day. A bunch of gamers stepping up all across the board. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll run Wandy Peralta out there any and every day in the 8th inning with the lead. Okay? It doesn't work sometimes. But I can tell you what, this group, outside of the result at the end of the day, the heart and the competitive spirit and those guys getting after everything they've got, it doesn't work out every time. But I'll take this group any day of the week because I got a bunch of winning gamers. Take that over the long haul.
Is a part of the agitation, Mike. You did get a couple homers. Eggy lays down a sacrifice bunt. You guys are doing the productive out thing. Daniel De Los Santos was incredible. Is that a part of it, that it was such a good game?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, listen, but we're not going to pin it on anybody. We're just going to – we played great baseball. Again, guys fought their tails off, got to do a lot of right things very well. Came in here and just competed in the middle of the back end of a 13 game in a row, and you're on the road and a tough place to play from a physical standpoint, and these guys laid it all out there. It just didn't work out.
How is Jackson? What do you expect?
Yeah, day to day, I haven't heard anything beyond that.
But precautionary is the term.
Very
that was
precautionary.
used.
Yeah.
Do you know when that came up for him?
Excuse me.
Do you know when that came up for him?
Yeah, it came up about 15 minutes before the game.
Just high altitude, rather.
I can't speak to the altitude, or I just know he had a little issue was growing and made a decision to make a move.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after today's game in Colorado. Again, the final score here today, the Rockies 10 and the Padres 9. And no doubt in the early part of Mike Shildt's managerial tenure with the Padres, that is certainly as passionate, as agitated as we've heard Mike Shildt so far. And you understand it. This was a very, very difficult loss. Tell you what, I like it. I like it, right? And I'm sure if you're out there listening, a lot of you like it too. I like the passion. I understand what Mike Shildt's saying with Wandy Peralta. Look, Peralta comes in, gives up the home run. Okay, that was the first batter that Peralta faced. So there's no taking out Wandy right after that. He's got to face 2 more by the rules. Makes it a 9-7 game. Now, if you want to look at that 8th inning and say that Mike Shildt should have gone to somebody else sooner, you can have that opinion. My question to you would be who? Okay, you could have gone to another lefty like a Tom Cosgrove. You could have gone to Adrian Morahone. I don't know how available he was after throwing 2+ innings on Tuesday. But from the right-handed side, unless you were going to Robert Suarez, which you weren't going to do in that spot unless it was a save situation, or you were going to Stephen Kolek, which Mike Shildt was essentially forced to do later in the inning. I don't know, and we've kind of talked about this with the Padres bullpen, finding that righty arm outside De Los Santos and outside Kolek that you can use in a really high leverage spot right there. And aside from Robert Suarez, who you're not trying to use yet, look, you're entitled to that opinion. If you think he should have gone to somebody else aside from Peralta, should have got Peralta out earlier. But my question to you would be who? And I understand the line of thinking from Mike Shildt that Wandy's a ground ball guy, that the home run at Coors Field didn't necessarily mean you go to run to take him out, and you've got an opportunity there in that inning, even as there are a couple of runners on base and you still have a lead. A ground ball gets you out of the inning with the lead. So I understand what Mike Shilt's line of thinking there is. Again, I said it in the opening segment. This was just one of those cases. Peralta didn't have it, and the inning totally unraveled. It was a tough day for Wandy Peralta, who's been really, really good lately. I mean, keep this in mind, everybody. Peralta came in a 1.50 ERA in 13 appearances on the year. I mean, he's been really good lately. He just didn't have it. So I understand the line of thinking there. I understood the questions by the media too. I think it's a fair question. But I do understand the line of thinking to try to keep Peralta in to get out of it with a ground ball guy on the mound. I do understand it, but it's a fair question. On the other hand, and hey, again, I like the passion. I don't mind it. Hey, this was a tough loss. And, not to compare the two because it's two different teams, two different seasons. But look, that's something we didn't hear a whole lot from Bob Melvin last year, as far as this early in the season, after how many kinds of losses did the Padres have last year, having a manager that was that fired up after a game. So I like it. You can certainly have an opinion today and disagree with Peralta staying in for as long as he did. I understand the line of thinking from Mike Shildt there. But hey, didn't work out in just sort of a nightmarish eighth inning. And again, the Padres watched the Rockies score 6 runs in that eighth inning to go on and win it 10-9. But yeah, that was an interesting post game from Mike Shildt. Obviously not happy with what happened in that eighth inning and how this team finished the game here today. But again, I don't think there's a lot of finger pointing to do in this one. There are some nights where there are plenty of nights I've sat here on the post-game show and I've lamented the offense for not adding on or whatever it might be. Today, it was just that eighth inning. Matsui gives up a double and a walk, and then Peralta came in, and it just did not go well. And if you have the opinion that Peralta should have been out sooner, that's a fair question. And the media asked Mike Shildt basically that question. But I do understand the line of thinking. Peralta, ground ball guy, a veteran who's been really, really good, of not pushing the panic button too soon and saying, you know what, instead of going to Kolek here, instead of going to another lefty here, I understand Mike Shildt saying, hey, I have faith in Wandy Peralta to get us out of this thing, even with some runners on base. I do. But tough. Really, really tough. Didn't work out. It didn't work out for Peralta, and then Kolek obviously gives up the go-ahead hit. So just all in all, however you want to slice it, nightmarish eighth inning for the Padres here today. We'll step aside here on the Padres Radio Network. When we come back, we'll give out more of our daily awards. Full out-of-town scoreboard coming up a little bit later as well. Final score here tonight, Rockies 10, Padres 9. More post-game coverage after this. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, Rockies 10 and the Padres 9. Oh, what a ball game in Colorado today. Rough one for the Padres. Rockies score 6 runs in the bottom half of the 8th inning to come back and stun the Padres here today. And really what was, and I've said the word a handful of times now, it was a nightmarish 8th inning. You can call it a meltdown, whatever word you want to use to describe it. It was one of those in the 8th inning, an inning that saw 6 runs scored by the Rockies on 5 hits, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, 1 pass ball. That sort of tells the story right there, right? 2 wild pitches, 1 pass ball, 3 walks, 5 hits, 6 runs. Yeah, it's not a good inning. Not one you're going to like. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studio. Still a lot to do on our post-game coverage. And just to give you a little programming preview here, next hour or so into the evening here on 97.3 The Fan, you'll have me for, I don't know, 20, 30 more minutes, something like that. Then we'll have Chris Ello and Matt Scraby come in. They'll probably have a segment or two for you talking about the Padres. And then at 5 p.m., we have live NFL draft coverage with Ello, Scraby, and Braden Soprenant. So they will cover the NFL draft. So we'll have plenty of Padres talk for you here in the next hour. And then we're going to move on to some NFL draft coverage. So maybe not the worst thing in the world after a game like this. And maybe you can move on for a few hours. But that's what's on tap for the next few hours here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Again, we are streaming on YouTube today for the very first time on our pregame and postgame coverage. So if you want to get involved on the YouTube stream and you want to let me know what you thought about this game, we may read your message on the air. You can comment on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you're watching right now. Of course, our normal ways of communication also available always as well. That's on Twitter, Instagram. You can tweet at me, Instagram, DM me at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Again, SAMMYLEV. Or if you want to get a phone call in, we do have time to squeeze in some calls. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. The phone number to call as always. I do want to read this YouTube comment from R. Allen Price because it's about Mike Shilt's post-game press conference. And R. Allen Price says, I was not sure at all that Mike Shildt was up to the job and have been waiting to be convinced. After his response to the press, I am definitely convinced now. Great stuff. So, look, you know, I said it too. I like that response from Mike Shildt. Whether you thought Peralta should have come out earlier, whether you agreed with the bullpen moves today, I liked a fired up Mike Shildt. I like there being some urgency, some passion on April 25th in a game the Padres absolutely should have won today. I mean, you can't lose this game today, not against this Rockies team. And you look at the series as a whole, you split it. You know, look, for a Padres team that's got a tough schedule right now, quite frankly, that's not what you wanted. That's not good enough. You needed to take 3 of 4, especially considering you had a 9-4 lead today in the 8th inning. So I'm with the comment there. I really like that response for Mike Shildt, the way he was kind of fired up post-game. And look, he sort of challenged the reporters there, and look, there was a little bit of that, but I like the way he was fired up. And the explanation to me about why Peralta stayed in, I understood it. Now, you have the right to disagree with it here today. And that's a fair question, but I do understand the line of thinking based on who he had already used and based on the guy that Wandy Peralta has been. So we'll continue to take your comments and maybe some phone calls as well. Full out-of-town scoreboard coming up as well in just a little while. Let's now tell you about our relief pitcher of the game.
Which pitcher was able to come in and slam the door shut? It's time for the relief pitcher of the game in support of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, providing food assistance to local children, families, and seniors in need. To get help or give help, visit SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Well, for a while here today, I thought the relief pitcher of the game was going to be very obvious. It was going to be Enyel De Los Santos for the Padres. And maybe if you want to have a separate relief pitcher of the game today, you go with Enyel because he came in with 2 inherited runners on in the 6th inning. At that point, it was only a 6-4 game, and he struck out the 3 batters he faced. And oh, by the way, he struck out the first batter of the 7th inning as well. So 4 batters, 4 strikeouts for De Los Santos today. So for the Padres, that was our relief pitcher of the game. But I don't know, after what happened with the bullpen today, that we can officially give a relief pitcher of the game to a Padre today. So our official reliever of the game, we'll go with the Rockies' Peter Lambert, who, when you look at the scope of this game, 2 2/3 innings out of the bullpen, no runs given up, kept it within reach, left the game. It was 6-4. Now the Padres would get it to 9-4, but he was really good. So one of those days where De Los Santos deserved it, but with what happened late, now you look at it, and hey, you look at the Colorado relievers who didn't allow this game to totally unravel. So we give it to Peter Lambert of the Rockies. You know, with relief pitcher of the game, sometimes we have to do relief pitcher of the game gymnastics, if you will, to make it all make sense. So a little bit De Los Santos today, but ultimately, hey, the Rockies bullpen, they weren't great in this game at all. But you know what? They kept it close enough to allow the Rockies to hang around down by 5 and give them a chance to put together an inning like that 8th inning. So, hey, somebody like Lambert, who went 2 2/3 innings out of the bullpen for Colorado today, deserves credit. He does. So, but hey, again, the bright spot, Brito. I should mention Johnny Brito too. I didn't mention him. 2 1/3 innings scoreless out of the pen. He was really important in this game for the Padres. And De Los Santos, again, 4 batters faced, 4 strikeouts. So you look at those 2 guys, Brito and De Los Santos. I really should have mentioned Brito there as well. Both those guys very good out of the Padres pen. And to that point, it had been more of the same for the Padres bullpen, which has been outstanding lately. But then things came apart in the 8th inning between Matsui, Peralta, and Kolek. When we come back here on the Padres Radio Network, we may squeeze in some phone calls. We'll continue to take your YouTube comments, your tweets, and your DMs at Sammy Lev, SammyLev. Come back with the out-of-town scoreboard and much more. Final score again here today, Rockies 10, Padres 9 on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, tough one for the Padres. They fall 10-9 to the Colorado Rockies. And when you take a look at the final score, let's say you're just looking at the box score later tonight, you didn't watch the game, you didn't listen to the game, you have no idea what happened in the Padres game tonight. You might say, oh, well, that was one of those classic Coors Field games, high scoring, 25 hits combined, 19 runs combined. Oh, well, things get crazy at Coors, but that would not be an accurate depiction of the game, because that would be not including the detail that the Padres had a 9-4 lead heading into the bottom of the 8th inning, and then things just unraveled in the bottom of the 8th inning as the Rockies scored 6 runs on 5 hits, sent 11 men to the plate, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, a passed ball that ended up tying the game. It was an ugly 8th inning for the Padres, no doubt about it. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. We'll have our player of the game, play of the game, out-of-town scoreboard, all coming up. We're continuing to take your YouTube comments. First time we're streaming our post-game show on YouTube, so if you want to go check that out for the first time ever, you can do that on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. Of course, we're taking your tweets and DMs at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Again, SAMMYLEV. Do want to address a DM here from Cole. And Cole asking, why pull De Los Santos if he struck out everyone he faced? And now look, De Los Santos was great in this game, struck out the 3 batters he faced with runners on first and second, nobody out in the 6th inning, faced the first batter of the 7th inning. Doyle struck him out. So yeah, he was 4 up, 4 down from the 6th through the 7th with 4 strikeouts. Now look, you could argue that De Los Santos, well, why take him out, right? He was at 14 pitches. He should at least finish the 7th inning or be given a chance to finish the 7th inning. Ultimately, Mike Shildt went to Yuki Matsui to face the left-handed batter, Ryan McMahon. Look, it all worked out in that 7th inning because Matsui got the next 2 outs. I don't think that had a huge impact in this game, unless you want to look at it this way. It didn't have a big impact in the game because it didn't really end up like De Los Santos is not going to pitch into the 8th inning there, even if he gets through the 7th. He's not going 2+ innings. That's just not the guy he's been, right? The one argument you could make is this. If De Los Santos finishes that 7th inning, let's say Yuki Matsui starts that 8th inning fresh. I don't know if he's fresh. It's a clean inning. First batter he faces is in that 8th inning. Does he give up a 1-out double? Does he walk a guy with 2 outs? Those 2 batters really spark the rally in that 8th inning for the Rockies. That would be the argument. I think that's playing a little revisionist history and kind of drawing through things that didn't really happen, but that would be the argument to that. So it's a fair question. And again, I think today, like we said after Mike Shildt spoke, look, there are fair questions to ask about the bullpen today and who came in when, and Wandy Peralta staying in for as long as he did. And we'll dive back into Mike Shilt's comments here in a little bit because I do think it's worth replaying before we go in case you missed it. I did understand, though, what Mike Shildt said in the line of thinking today with Wandy Peralta, how good he's been, the ground ball rate for Peralta. I got it. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But look, it's a rough day in that 8th inning. There's just no way around it. All right, let's quickly go to the phones here. 833-288-0973, the phone number to call, 833-288-0973. The phone number. Let's begin with Matt, who's calling in from San Diego. Hi, Matt. You're on the Padres Radio Network. How are you?
Sammy Lev, thanks for taking my call. I'm doing okay. I wanted to call because I actually got quite a different impression from Mike Shilt's comments than kind of what I've heard just in the post-game show.
Okay.
I think what sticks out to me, I will first say I love him sticking with his guns with Wandy Peralta, and I think that's a great comment to say, and I think it's true. It's like, yeah, we have a guy with a very low ERA that's pitched very well. I'm going to go with him, and I'm going to go with him next time. I think that's a good message to send your player and your team and your guys that, like, hey, you perform, I'm going to stick with you. What doesn't stick with me so much is the kind of idea, like there were a couple times where he looked at the media and said, like, well, I don't know what you want me to say. I think the stuff happens narrative sticks in a world where you lose a 1-run game that hinges on a close play, or like, you know, when it's truly just chance that's more or less drove whether you win or lost. But when you're talking about blowing a 6-run lead or a 5-run lead with a 6-run inning, in an inning where, like we said, I think we count 6 unforced errors between 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, a pass ball. I think what you say is you didn't execute in the inning, not that stuff happens. I think that meant that we're very early and we don't necessarily need to jump to a bunch of conclusions about like the message that sends. I do think if that is the overall message through these kind of bad losses, that's not a great message to send to the team, where you can just say, stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you didn't execute and you had a really bad inning. I think that's what you can say, because in reality, you just blew a very winnable game to a very bad team going into a very rough stretch of the schedule. And so I think that sort of agitation towards the media and that sort of like, well, what do you want me to say, doesn't stick with me so much, because I mean, it's pretty clear what you say. You say you didn't execute. You know, You can say, hey, I'm not going to change my plans, like this happened, but like you didn't execute. It's not some like chance or like, oh, whatever stuff happens. And when you blow a lead like that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you, Matt. Look, I don't think Mike Shildt was trying to necessarily say, and by the way, I didn't see the video of the post-game comments. I just heard it via what we played. So I don't want to make too much of body language or how he said it, because I didn't see it. I'm sure I'll see it in a little bit once I get off the air. But Matt, you know, look, I thought, I don't think Mike Shildt was trying to say, you know, stuff just happens, or saying, oh, it was a one-off, no big deal. You know, look, I think it was clear to everybody, and I'm sure Mike included, that Peralta didn't have his best stuff today. Now, again, if you want to say, well, if he didn't have his best stuff and it wasn't going well, you got to get him out of there, that's fine. That's a fair second guessing, I think, today. I understood what Mike was saying in the sense of, hey, you know, Peralta is a guy we're going to trust in that spot. He's a guy we're going to trust to get out of that spot, even after the home run, after he allows a couple of base runners after that, part of that, the ground ball rate. I understood the line of thinking. And I also think you have to put in context, it's April 25th, in the sense of we're in a part of the schedule that I think you have to keep on instilling confidence in your guys and your relievers, you know, in particular, even on a day where they clearly didn't have it, like Peralta did today. And Matt, appreciate the phone call. You know, I don't think it was sort of a relaxed, oh, stuff happens sort of attitude today. But I do think it was one of those situations where Peralta didn't have it. And I think what Mike Shildt was sort of getting at was, hey, that's a guy we're gonna trust in that spot. He didn't have it today. And look, if you want to say to that as a fan, well, then you got to get him out. I understand that. But I also understood the line of thinking of, well, again, who are you bringing in? I mean, you could have brought in another lefty like Cosgrove. I mean, it would have been ultra aggressive to go get a Robert Suarez and bring him in. I mean, look, Suarez threw on Wednesday, Suarez threw on Monday. I mean, look, you could have gone in the 8th inning while you still had a lead there to Suarez. Hypothetically, that may have been something the Padres didn't want to do today, and Suarez has done already a few times in the early part of this season. So I don't know the answer to that. They didn't really get to that during the post-game press conference, but yeah, I don't think it was, you know, so much of a, hey, stuff happens, no big deal kind of thing. I think it was one of those situations where he was trying to make it clear that Peralta is a guy they trust in that spot, a guy they trust to get out of situations like that. And, you know, trying to instill some confidence in his guys on a day where Wandy just didn't have it. So, hey, it's a tough spot, you know, post game when you lose a game like that and the 8th inning goes as poorly as it did. So I don't know that a lot of the answers today that everybody would have been happy with after a loss like this, but we'll revisit what Mike Shildt had to say again a little bit later coming up. Let's tell you about our player of the game.
Which player had the biggest impact on today's game? Let's find out who is today's player of the game. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Catch every game at Patties and Pints. Plus, enjoy $4 beer every Thursday. Visit valleyviewcasino.com today.
Player of the game here today. This is a tough one. Well, for a while today, you probably picked somebody from the offense, right? I mean, Profar, the home run. But again, you just look at this game, the 8th inning in particular. I lean towards giving it to Hunter Goodman today, right? The 3-run home run made it go from, a couple of runners on, 9-4 game, 5-run lead, even in Colorado against this Rockies team. No big deal, right? The Goodman home run made you nervous because then it's a 2-run game, still with only 1 out in that 8th inning, and things continue to unravel. So I'll give it to Hunter Goodman for that 3-run home run. To me, that felt like a big swing. It gave the Rockies life in this game. So one of those nights where, days I should say, where, our player of the game, it's going to be a non-Padre Rocky here today. Hunter Goodman for that 3-run home run will be our player of the game here today. Again, we'll keep on taking your YouTube comments, your Instagram DMs, your tweets here on 97.3 The Fan, the Padres Radio Network post-game show. We'll get to some more of your YouTube comments coming up here in a little bit. Let's take a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores from around the major leagues today. We have a few finals already. We have a couple of games going on right now. Brewers beat the Pirates 7-5 in Pittsburgh. Gary Sanchez hit a home run in that game to give the Brewers a lead in the 8th inning. Former Padre with a big swing for the Brew Crew. Guardians beat the Red Sox 6-4 in Cleveland. Jose Ramirez, a grand slam in that game. Twins beat the White Sox 6-3 in Minnesota. Twins a couple of home runs in that game. Phillies beat the Reds 5-0 in Cincinnati. Bryce Harper, a 2-run home run in that game. Phillies coming to Petco Park for the start of a 3-game series tomorrow. Cubs beat the Astros in Chicago 3-1. Pete Crow Armstrong hit a 2-run home run in that game. His first major league hit after getting called up, a home run at Wrigley Field. Cubs are now 16-9. The Astros lose again. The Houston Astros, and I feel like it's something I have talked about quite a bit during the out-of-town scoreboard lately. Astros are 7-19. Again, that's a team with a lot of good players, pedigree, track record as a team, as individuals. But 7-19, you're digging a hole that's going to take you months to get out of. Tough start for the Astros. They fall 3-1 to the Cubs. Mariners beat the Rangers 4-3 in Arlington. Dodgers beat the Nationals 2-1 in D.C. Games going on right now. A's and the Yankees scoreless in the Bronx, 2nd inning there. Royals beating the Blue Jays 2-1 in Kansas City. They are in a rain delay, but in the 6th inning there in KC. And that's a look at the full out-of-town scoreboard on this Thursday across the major leagues. When we come back, we'll have our play of the game. We'll squeeze in some comments, maybe a phone call before we go, then flip things over to Matt Scraby, Chris Ello. They'll have some more Padres talk for you until 5 p.m. And then at 5 p.m., we have our special NFL draft coverage with Ello, Scraby, and Braden Soprenet. So we'll wrap up our post-game show when we come back. Again, the final score here today, Rockies 10, Padres 9 on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score today, Rockies 10 and the Padres 9. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. We're wrapping things up here on our post-game show on the Padres Radio Network. Coming up in just a handful of minutes, we'll flip things over to Chris Ello, Matt Scraby. They'll talk Padres with you until 5 p.m., and that's when our NFL draft coverage begins with Ello, Scraby, and Braden Soprenit. We'll get you ready for tomorrow's game against the Phillies in just a moment as well. Before we get to our play of the game, let's just revisit, in case you're just hopping in your car, tuning in, you've been at work all day, because I do think it's worth revisiting and replaying what Mike Shildt had to say after the game, what he had to say about, just his team in general in today's game, but also about the decision to leave Wandy Peralta in during that 8th inning as things weren't going well, and they continued to sort of get worse and worse because it was a fired up Mike Shildt today, certainly as passionate as we've heard him be in the early part of his Padres managerial tenure. Let's revisit some of what Mike Shildt had to say in Denver after the game.
I don't have any concern. I'm going to tell you what, I walked out of this ballpark, there's some agitation because we didn't win the game. And I'm going to tell you what I walk out of this ballpark with, a couple things. A bunch of gamers that showed up without one of our better players in Manny, which, rightfully so. He's having a baby. We had Jackson who, little ouchie, want to stay away from it. We had guys all over the field playing their asses off and going out and stepping up and getting after it every day. A bunch of gamers stepping up all across the board. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll run Wandy Peralta out there any and every day in the 8th inning with the lead. Okay, it doesn't work sometimes. But I can tell you what, this group, outside of the result at the end of the day, the heart and the competitive spirit and those guys getting after everything they've got, it doesn't work out every time. But I'll take this group any day of the week because I got a bunch of winning gamers. Take that over the long haul.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after the game today. And a little bit later in that, he talked more about Wandy Peralta. Mike was fired up again at some of the questioning about Wandy Peralta staying in. So if you missed what Mike Shildt had to say, because I would highly recommend today you go back and take a listen to it. You know what? Actually, we'll replay it for you, because there was another part of this you should hear when he was asked more about Wandy Peralta. So let's hear again what he had to say to the line of questioning about leaving Peralta in as that 8th inning unraveled.
It did seem like for as good as Wandy has been of late, he just didn't really have it from the start today. Why was he left in for 5 batters? Did you consider getting him out of there earlier?
It was obvious to you.
I said it seemed like he didn't really have it early today.
Okay. Wandy has about a 60% ground ball rate. Okay. The second a guy gives up a home run, I can't just go take out a guy that's got a microscopic ERA and's got righties out all year. Now, it can be subjective whether he has or not. That can be your opinion. My opinion is I got a veteran guy out there that knows how to get a ball in the ground and is one pitch away from getting a ground ball. So that's what we had. It didn't work out. Things don't work out all the time. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
That was Mike Shildt, the questioning there about Wandy Peralta. And I'll tell you what, whether you totally agreed with Mike leaving Peralta in or how the bullpen was managed today, on a personal level, I like the fire. I like the passion. And I said this earlier, not to compare the two, because at this point, it doesn't matter, right? Last year's last year. This year's this year. But we didn't hear that, especially this early, from Bob Melvin last year. And I do like the idea that there's a level of intensity and urgency, whether you agreed with the moves today or not, from Mike Shildt this early. I like it. And again, I think it's a fair question as far as Peralta in that 8th inning, but I do understand the line of thinking with a veteran like Peralta on the mound, with the righties up. He's been good against righties, like Mike Shildt said. Again, I would ask you, who are you going to, unless you're going to Robert Suarez, still in front in that 8th inning? Maybe that wasn't part of the plan today, which I understand. I mean, Suarez has done that a couple of times already. It's early this season. look, I understand the line of thinking of trying to let your veteran Peralta, who's a big ground ball guy, when you need 2 outs and you've got forces, at second base and third base. I understood the line of thinking there in the explanation. You have the right to disagree with it, but I did get it there. So anyway, that was what Mike Shildt had to say. Fired up Mike Shildt today. You certainly understand it. Rough loss for the Padres as they drop it 10-9 to the Rockies. Let's now hear our play of the game.
What was the crucial play that determined who came out on top? This is today's play of the game, presented by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
2-0, the pitch. Diaz hammers it in the air down the left field line. That's a fair ball. That'll get it done. Doyle in to score. Diaz on his way to second. An RBI double, and Colorado does lead for the first time in a long time. It's 10-9.
Well, unfortunately today had to be the go-ahead RBI base hit by Elias Diaz in the 8th inning. Made it a 10-9 game. So one of those days where you're not going to love the play of the game, but we had one option here today. The hit that gave the Rockies a 10-9 lead, capped a 6-run 8th inning, and that 8th inning totally changed this ball game here today as the Padres split this 4-game series against the Colorado Rockies. All right, before we take a look ahead to tomorrow and finally wrap things up here, just a couple of things for you. Number one, even though we're on YouTube now and we're streaming, and great job by Frank Marchese, our studio coordinator today, helping out with the YouTube stream. We know it's a little bit bare bones, but we're on and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody who tuned into YouTube. I'm excited about it. I think it gives our listeners, our viewers, another way to enjoy the pre and post game content. So I hope you'll utilize the YouTube stream and obviously Facebook, Twitter, all the different platforms you can watch the video stream on. So hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody who joined in on the YouTube and the chat today. Very good to see everybody. Hope you enjoyed the stream today. Does not mean we don't still have the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt. We will upload things there like we always do, full post-game shows, pre-game content. And again, you can always go back, listen to our entire post-game show on the Padres, or I should say on the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt, available on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, taking a look ahead to tomorrow. Padres back home at Petco Park, the start of a 3-game series and a homestand. First up, the Philadelphia Phillies. First pitch tomorrow at 6:40. Pre-game coverage begins at 5:40. Right-hander Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres. Right-hander Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies. So a good pitching matchup tomorrow between a couple of veteran right-handers. Again, first pitch tomorrow at 6:40. Pre-game coverage at 5:40. Certainly hope you can join us then. Taking a look at the final totals here today in Colorado for the Rockies. 10 runs, 14 hits, no errors. They left on 8. For the Padres, 9 runs, 11 hits, no errors. They left on 5. Winning pitcher in this game, Tyler Kinley, who improves to 1-0. Losing pitcher was Wandy Peralta, who drops to 1-1. The save goes to Justin Lawrence, his second of the season. Time of game at Coors Field in Colorado, 3 hours and 6 minutes, and the crowd, 27,705. Once again, first pitch tomorrow at Petco Park at 6:40. Our pregame coverage begins at 5:40. Until then, for our great studio coordinator, Frank Marchese, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long from inside our San Diego studios. Again, the final score, the Colorado Rockies 10 and the San Diego Padres 9. Chris Ello, Matt Scraby coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Petco Park on the Padres Radio Network.